Hey everyone, Matt Thomas here. Thanks for watching. So recently I presented a neuroeducation workshop at an educational conference in Anaheim. And with all of my workshops, I like to go back, rewatch them, reflect on it, and like think about did my message come across the way I intended it to? And this particular clip that we're about to watch is regarding, is it effective to require our students to speak out in class? And is that, when we require our students to speak out, is that supported by how the brain learns most efficiently and most effectively? So please watch this clip and I'll have some comments to make afterward. Thank you.
Teach based on science.
We'll talk about the interest and how important it is. Throughout this session, I will be breaking some called neuromyth or educational myths. The first one is all students need to speak out. Or frame like, I don't let my students hide in the class. You know those ones that sit in the back, you know those? In education, we make that seem like it's a bad thing. Here's the thing. Now, neuroscientists and behavioral psychologists use metaphors and analogies to make very complex information more accessible. So throughout this, I am going to use metaphors. So today I'm going to say, hey, for this, there's two types of learners. There's tons of different types of learners. For this, I just need two of them, all right? There are observer reflectors, which is what I am. I'm an observer reflector. I'm the one that sits in the back. Not because I'm shy or reserved, but because I like to stretch my legs out. I like to see everybody. I like to look at them while they're talking. You well notice it's a coping skill. I'm not looking any of you in the eyes. I'm looking at your foreheads. I don't know if you guys do, because if I look in the eyes, it's so creepy. So I do. But the thing is, I like to look at people when they're talking. Then, if I'm asked a question, I like to take the responses, reflect on it, and then come up with something valuable. And that doesn't always take 1 minute or 2 minutes. So if someone calls on me without setting me up, blah, 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 Gatsby and Tom and Daisy and Affair and whatever, Matt, what? Like, it puts me in tunnel vision. I'll try to respond with something. I hope I don't sound like an idiot, but I won't really remember what I say. And then all day I'll be reflecting back, trying to see if what I said sounded good or not. Because I'm an observer reflector. So if a teacher says, Matt, what's the answer? And I go, I got nothing right now, which is probably accurate. And the teacher says, I'll come back in 3 minutes, because that's what we're taught to do. We're giving that person time. 3 minutes isn't going to help me. I need tomorrow. I need an hour. I need more time. Please, come on in. We got plenty of room. Please. If there's an empty seat, do you mind? Please, definitely. Let me ask you, how many of you, show of hands, if you don't mind looking around, there's a lot of us. How many of you are observer reflectors? You're like me. Look at that. 3/4 of you. Thank you so much. Now, there's the other side, the speaker responders. The ones who, we have them in our class. When we ask a question, boom, their hand shoots up. We need those. Because the way they learn, again, it's a metaphor, the speaker responders hear what we say, they need to speak it in their mind or repeat it, and then respond or add on to it. That's how they make meaning. Again, making meaning is a metaphor. I'll talk about that a little bit later on. We need speaker responders. How many of you are speaker responders in here? Awesome, amazing, thank you. Now here's the thing. A speaker responder could also include the student who mumbles under their breath and interrupts our instruction. So if I'm the teacher, if I'm doing Romeo and Juliet and I'm talking about how the nurse is the comic relief, and Joey in the back goes, dude, your mom's a comic relief. And I go, Joey, what are you doing? He's making meaning. Because he's taking comic relief, he's connecting it to Joey's mom somehow. I don't know Joey's mom. But as teachers, we kind of need him to do that. And it's okay. Patience, right? We have to have patience. So, in our system of education, though, 3/4 of us are observer reflectors. We're not always highlighted. We're not always appreciated. It's built more for make every student talk. Teachers, you do not have to force your students to talk. Equity sticks, equity cards, any of those sound great in theory. But in reality, based on our brain, based on our individual personalities, you don't necessarily need to use them. Now, I will tell you, if you're being observed, and your admin is like, I want you to use more equity sticks. Use the equity sticks. Don't be like, no, Matt the neuroscience guy said no, do what you need to do. But just know that you don't have to force your students to talk. You're not being something that's anti-teaching when you do that. So, the takeaway from this, it's okay to let your observers be observers. It's okay to let your speakers be speakers because we need both. So now, that all being said, let's go into what is brain-based learning, because that comes up a lot. Okay, so I want to make a couple comments about some of the things I said during the presentation. So during the workshop, at the very beginning of it, I made the comment that oftentimes observer reflectors are not highlighted in education. The word I meant to use was supported. So oftentimes observer reflectors are not supported enough in education. And what I mean by that is the educational strategies, educational theories oftentimes tend to lean more towards supporting speaker responders. So getting students out of their comfort zone, having them stand up and present, sharing out with someone, reading aloud, pointing on students immediately to respond and check for understanding that way. That tends to lean more towards supporting the speaker responder than it does the observer reflector. Now, I know you can't see in the video, but there were over 200 people in the audience. And when I asked everyone, if they were observer reflectors, how many of them were observer reflectors? About 3/4 of them raised their hands. So the strategies tend to lean towards more the speaker responder than, say, the observer reflector. The second thing I want to comment on is, so as a presenter, presenters will oftentimes rely on the reaction of the audience to kind of tell us whether we should add on to a comment, kind of continue with it, or if we should just kind of leave a topic and kind of move on from it. And so I say that because when I talked about equity sticks and I made the comment like, hey, if you have an administrator walk into your classroom, I did not expect the audience to react that way to it. I didn't expect them to laugh essentially so much with that comment. And so you can see I kind of added on and leaned into it a little bit because I got such a positive reaction from that. But my intent was this. What I meant to say, and my intention was that oftentimes strategies are pushed down or supported or told to be used without the research behind it, like why it's effective. It's kind of like, hey, this strategy is effective. I want you to start using it. But there isn't a lot of why behind it. Like theoretically, it sounds really good, right? Theoretically, a lot of these educational strategies sound really great, but they're not supported by how the brain learns the most efficiently. And so if you've ever seen my videos on neuromyths, I talk about those as well. Please feel free to watch those. But that's my intention of it, is there are times when in education we're told to use this strategy because maybe we heard it from someone else or we read it somewhere, and theoretically it sounds great, but it isn't always supported by how the brain actually learns. And I will say too, there are times when there's right time and place for certain strategies, right? If you're in a classroom and you really you need a student to speak out, right? So you need them to respond, but they're not responding. That might be a time or place to say, hey guys, I need someone to speak out. Please, I don't like calling you, but Joey, do me a favor, if you could speak out. There are times and places for certain strategies, without a doubt. If you want some strategies on how to get your students to respond more in class, please watch my video on how to get students to respond more in class. The final thing I want to comment on is when talking about observer reflectors and speaker responders, I had a friend of mine ask me, he goes, okay, those two categories, is there a third category? Like, what if I'm in the middle? What if I'm, both at times? And I said, yeah, let me clarify. So when we place categories on something, when we identify categories like observer reflector, speaker responder, that's us as humans doing it, right? That's me labeling a category. We're the ones that label. When we talk about 7 different layers of this or 12 different types of this, that's us labeling it, right? The brain is very fluid. The brain isn't going to create that type of category or label. That's us doing it. The reality is that we will oftentimes switch and move between categories that we created all throughout the day, right? There are times where our students will be observer reflectors in one class and speaker responders in another. And oftentimes it's based on context. It's based on interest, motivation. It's based on situation. It's why we act one way when we're around some people, and then we switch to another way when we're around another person. So I myself, if I'm in a workshop that I'm absolutely interested in, like neuroeducation, I'm going to be a speaker responder. I might interrupt someone because I'm so interested and I want to interrupt them. And then I'll be like, I'm so sorry for interrupting you. But the point is in that case, I'm going to be a speaker responder if I'm very interested, if I'm in the right situation, I have the right context. Whereas if I'm in another workshop, I'm going to be more an observer reflector. So yes, please try not to get stuck on labels or categories,
and do understand that it's not necessarily finite. We blend and we code switch. Our brains are very fluid. We're the ones creating the labels. We're the ones creating the categories. Our brain moves in and out of those categories all day long. What we want to try to do is, for the students who are observer reflectors in our classes at that moment, we want to try to support them the best we can. For the students who are the speaker responders in our class at that moment, we want to try and do our best to support them as much as we can. Thanks for watching.